Jack. The alarm went off at the usual time of 6 a.m., and my wife Anita and I got up to start our day. I moaned loudly as I sat on the edge of the bed and swung my legs to the floor. "What's the matter?" "You're groaning like an old man," she teased, heading to the bathroom. "I feel like an old man after what you did to me last night." I heard her laugh in the bathroom, remembering the previous evening. She fucked me vigorously and finished it off with very sensual caresses of my manhood. She went on a business trip today and will probably be gone all week, leaving me at home alone. I wasn't looking forward to it. I heard the shower running and thought about joining her, but then decided I wasn't in the mood for it. She took too much from me this evening. When I returned to the bedroom later, she looked cheerful, while I sat feeling sorry for myself. "Come on, old man. Get up and go. We need 2 breadwinners to pay the mortgage on this place." Okay. "I'm moving," I told her, making my way to the bathroom to relieve myself and take a shower. We later met downstairs for breakfast before she headed to the airport and I to work. Anita is an attorney, and we both worked in a mid-sized manufacturing plant in St. Louis. She specializes in negotiations and travels with teams when they are working off-site, and this trip was to negotiate a new subcontract with a large aerospace firm in Denver. She went to such negotiations several times a year, and each time she was absent for at least a week. She was 35 years old, and 12 years earlier, she had graduated with honors from State University. Anita is very attractive, 163 centimeters, 57 kilograms, with beautiful feminine features, 86'6", 61'89", and I am madly in love and lust after her. I'm Jack Fillmore, and I work as an engineer for the same company as my wife. I am 37 years old. My height is 185 centimeters, and my weight is 75 kilograms. I play sports to stay in shape. We both love to play golf and often play foursomes with friends. We met at a company picnic, and for me, it was love at first sight. The same must have happened to her because after a whirlwind courtship, we were married 6 months later. We have been married for 7 years, and only 3 months ago we bought the house we live in now. This was the house where we planned to start our family, and Anita would stop taking birth control pills when she returned from this trip. We were excited about starting a family, and she planned to be a stay-at-home mom until the kids went to school. Our parents lived in the area, and I know they expected us to start a family soon. After breakfast, I loaded Anita's travel bag into her car and kissed her goodbye. She had tears in her eyes as she got into the car to leave. "Very soon, I hope I won't be traveling, honey. Then I won't have to say goodbye." "I hate them. I hate them just as much as you do, honey," I reassured her. "I'll see you Friday night and we'll just get some takeout so you can rest." "Sounds good. Bye." I watched her drive out of the garage and onto the street. After waving to her as she left, I then went into the house to finish preparing for leaving for the office. When I arrived at work, I went up to the engineering department and grabbed a cup of coffee in the break room before heading to my desk. I barely had time to sit down when the phone rang. "Fillmore," I announced to the person who called. "Jack, could you come into my office for a minute?" "Of course, Evan. I'll be right there." Evan was my boss. I grabbed my coffee and headed to his office. Entering the office, he waved his hand for me to sit in the chair. "Jack, I think you'll like this. I remember you told me last Friday that Anita would be traveling this week, so I have a little trip for you if you're interested. Gil Hawkins, our service engineer in California, is sick and unable to handle a problem a San Jose customer is having with one of our models. You have more experience with this model than anyone else, so would you like to go to San Jose and check it out?" "Well, there's not much going on here right now, and you're right, I've been stuck this week. So when do you want to see me there?" "Right now, let Katie get you the reservation and tickets, and you call the client and let him know you're coming and find out what the problem is." "Sounds good. I'll take care of it." I started to feel a little more excited about life. I can go home, pack my things, and fly out of here this afternoon and be with clients in the morning. "Okay, have a nice trip." Stopping at the desk of Evan's secretary, Kathy, I told her what I needed in terms of flights and reservations, and then went to my desk to call the client and determine their problem before heading home to pack. On the way home, I chuckled to myself because a plan was forming in my head that if I finished quickly, I could surprise my wife with a stop in Denver on the way home. The prospect of spending a couple of days with her in Denver was becoming more exciting by the minute. While waiting for my flight at the airport, I called Anita on her mobile phone, but she didn't pick up, so I left a voice message that I would stay with relatives for a couple of days and that she would call me on my mobile in the evenings. Everything went perfectly. I was at the customer's place on Tuesday morning, made the necessary adjustments to the equipment, and by noon, everything was checked and working satisfactorily. Back at the hotel, I called the airline and boarded a flight that would take me to Denver at 9 p.m. local time. After checking out of my hotel in San Jose, I headed to the San Francisco airport for dinner. While I was eating, Anita called me on my mobile and we talked for a few minutes. She asked how my family was doing, and I answered as if I was at their home. She told me that negotiations were progressing, but she was tired and would be spending a quiet evening in her hotel room. We said goodbye with expressions of love, and after eating, I boarded my flight. At 9:45, I checked into Anita's suite at the hotel desk, and after checking my identity, I was given a card to enter her room. Quietly entering the room, I saw that a lamp was burning above the computer desk, and her laptop was standing on it, closed, but Anita was not visible. I put my suitcase down and looked into the bedroom, but it was empty, as was the bathroom. Well, I thought, she hasn't returned to her room yet. I'll sit and wait, or maybe I'll go down and check if she's there. Then I noticed that the door to the next room was slightly open. I walked up to it and it quietly opened on well-oiled hinges. I looked around the living room and the adjoining room, but saw no one. In bewilderment, I stepped into the room and suddenly heard a groan from the bedroom. My gut tightened, and I suddenly began to sweat as I quietly walked to the bedroom door. My heart may not have stopped, but my breathing quickened at what I saw there in the dimly lit room. Anita was sitting on the bed, naked, facing me, riding a man whose face I couldn't see with his dick deep inside her. Her eyes were closed in obvious ecstasy of pre-climax bliss, and his hands caressed her breasts and the buds on them. My first instinct was to rush towards her and beat the guy to a pulp, but my mind took over my emotions, and I slowly backed away from the door and returned to her room. Opening my duffel bag, I pulled out the digital camera I'd brought with me to take a few souvenir photos and headed back to the other bedroom door. I turned off the flash and set the camera to low light, then stood quietly and took a few shots of the scene on the bed without attracting any of them's attention. They were so engrossed in what they were doing that they closed their eyes and were completely unaware of their surroundings. Before returning to the room, I checked the open briefcase on the table, found a business card, and checked the name, Sam Harris, our company's chief negotiator. I put the card in my pocket. Returning to her room, I took out the interface cable for the camera and the computer I was carrying and connected the camera to her laptop. Our laptops had the same photo software, so loading a photo from my camera and installing it on her desktop was a no-brainer. I then packed the camera in my travel bag and quietly left her room. Before leaving, I heard her scream as she climaxed. I almost burst into tears right there, but continued walking towards the elevator. After returning my registration card to the counter, I called the airline to find out when the next flight to St. Louis was leaving. I was lucky that there was a 6:30 a.m. flight that would get me home at 9:30 a.m. If I was lucky, I figured this would be around the time Anita would open her laptop at the conference table. Then she will know that she has been caught, and this will also let her know that our marriage is over. Returning to the airport, I checked into a nearby motel where I could not sleep, but I kept imagining what I had seen in her hotel bedroom. I cried and let my suffering pour out into tears. When I left the motel in the morning at 5 o'clock, I was in tears, and my thoughts were directed towards consummating our marriage as quickly as possible. Arriving back in St. Louis, my cell phone started ringing as I was getting into the car, and when I checked the number, I saw it was Anita. I turned it off and headed home. When I entered the house phone was still ringing, but when I checked the caller ID, I saw that it was Anita again. When I switched the phone to voicemail, I heard her crying into the phone. "Jack, please call me right now. I need to talk to you, honey. It is important." I ignored her piteous sobs, got up, changed my clothes, then went and rented a U-Haul and then returned to the house to start packing. If my calculations were correct, she would arrive around 4 p.m., and I wanted to be out of the house by then. It took a couple of hours, but I managed to remove all my personal belongings and transport them to a rented warehouse. Before packing, I called our lawyer and made an appointment with him for the afternoon. After unloading my things in the warehouse, I went to see our lawyer and asked him to immediately begin the divorce process. I was tempted to cite adultery as the reason for the divorce, but I decided to plead incompatibility and save adultery in case she wanted to fight the divorce. I also asked him to make a new will naming my brother as a beneficiary. When I went to the bank, I transferred half of our savings and new account balances into my name only, and then called my investment advisor to do the same with our accounts with him. With a sad heart, I drove to my parents' house and, taking my suitcase with me, got up and entered through the open door. My mother saw me first and exclaimed loudly, "Jack, where have you been? Anita called here several times and looked for you. Did you tell her you'll stay here?" My father, who had already retired, came in, and I sat down at the table and explained everything to them. They were shocked when I told them about Anita's infidelity and that our marriage was over. I asked if I could stay with them for a few days until I found a furnished apartment, and they agreed. I think my calculations were pretty accurate because at about 6 in the evening, as we were sitting down to dinner, the doorbell rang. My father stood up to answer and returned a minute later with Anita behind him, looking very upset. "Jack, why didn't you answer my calls?" "I needed to talk to you. You moved all your things out of the house. I think the message I left for you on your desk will tell you everything you want to know." "Oh my God. I was so afraid it was you. Can we go somewhere and talk, honey? Please." "Anita, I'm no longer your dear, and I have nothing to talk to you about. I have already started the divorce process, and our lawyers can convey everything that is needed. What I saw in Denver completely destroyed all the feelings I had for you, and I want you to leave so I can finish my dinner." "Oh, please, Jack, no. Please don't do this without talking to me. What can you say that would atone for your infidelity? What I saw and the photographs I have were definitely not rape. Better call your lover Sam and tell him that I'm coming for him tomorrow. Perhaps his wife will see things better than I do." "Oh my God. Can't we talk? Please, Jack. Please go away, Anita. My dinner is getting cold. I'll tell you what. Why don't you write me a long letter telling me how you can justify breaking your wedding vows? I am sure that a smart lawyer like you will be able to articulate what my fault was and that you can still love and respect me." Sobbing, she headed for the exit, but before reaching the door, she turned around. "Please, Jack, don't end our marriage without talking to me." "Goodbye, Anita." After she left, my parents were still crying and sitting there stunned. "That was terribly cruel, Jack." "Mom, do you want to look at my photographs, where she is with her lover? That's what's cruel. She has no respect for me at all, and I can't live with it, and will never be able to trust her again. Do you want me to give you grandchildren from such a woman?" "I know, son," my father finally spoke. "Maybe if things cool down a little, you can look at things differently. I knew that my family really liked it, Anita." "I don't think so, Dad. Let's talk about something else so I can digest my food." "Okay, son, Anita. On Monday morning, as I left the house, I regretted that I had to leave Jack, but I thought how wonderful it would be when I returned and we could start our family. We waited this long to make sure we were financially and career ready to be parents. Now, everything was almost ready. The trip to Denver was uneventful. I sat next to Sam Harris, our chief negotiator, and we talked a little about tomorrow's negotiations and then a little about what was going on in our families. He knew that when I got pregnant, I would quit my job, and he said he would miss me. Sam was 48 years old, had been married for 20 years, and had 2 school-age children. Sam and I had been a team of negotiators since before I was married, and we were very comfortable with each other. 2 other members of our team sat behind us and had their own conversations. When we arrived at the hotel in Denver, we checked into our rooms and, as we usually did, Sam and I were assigned adjoining rooms. This was originally intended to make evening negotiation stratagem meetings easier, but about 10 years ago, sex was introduced, and we convinced ourselves it was a way to relieve stress after a hard day of negotiations. At that time, we told ourselves that it really wasn't cheating on our wife if it helped us in our work. Sometimes we laughed about it. Then, after Jack and I had been married for a couple of years, I started to feel uneasy and we stopped doing it. Finally, during a particularly grueling negotiation, Sam asked if we could do it again to relieve the stress and anxiety. I reluctantly agreed, and before I knew it, I was once again carried away by this activity with him. The thrill of cheating and not getting caught boosted my libido at home significantly, so Jack benefited from it too, and I didn't feel so bad. We didn't meet on the first evening of this trip because I felt tired after dinner. However, after our first day of negotiations, I agreed to go to him the next evening. I don't know when or how Jack found out about it, or how he got the photo, but when I opened my laptop the next morning and turned it on, I was stunned by what I saw on the screen. Sam was sitting next to me, and when he saw this, he quickly slammed the lid and asked his colleague on the other side of the table to excuse us for a few minutes. We took the laptop out into the hallway. He was furious. "What kind of movie for adults is on your desktop?" he asked. "I don't know, Sam. The last time I turned it on, it wasn't there. I was still in shock." "Let me look again." Opening it again, we looked at the photograph together. "Damn it! It's you," he exclaimed. How can it be me?" "I don't know, but it's you, and underneath you, it's probably me, although you can't see my face. Did you leave your laptop unattended yesterday?" "No, he was with me on the trip and in my room while I was in yours." "Could someone break into your room with a camera?" "I don't think so. The door was closed and I'm guessing locked." "You need to go back to the hotel and try to find out if anyone was given a card to your room last night." "I'll handle things here. Try to contact Jack and find out where he was last night." "It couldn't be him. I talked to him last night at his relative's." "Did you call him on his relative's phone?" "No, he asked me to call him on his mobile phone." Oh, I don't like the sound of this. He could have been anywhere when you were talking to him. Call me on my cell phone if you find anything. Do everything possible to eliminate the consequences. Take a taxi to the hotel." "Okay, bye." I started to sweat. If Jack took a photo and put it on my laptop, I have to assume it was a message that our marriage was over. I needed to go back to the hotel and see what I could find out. The girl at the front desk called me a taxi, and 15 minutes later I returned to the hotel and first checked with the front desk to see if anyone had received a card in my room. The clerk checked the computer, and I was told that Mr. Jack Fillmore received the card at 9:45 the previous evening. The card was returned half an hour later. Then I realized that my marriage was most likely over. The person I loved most in the world was gone, but I had to try and fight to get him back. When I got up to my room, I immediately tried to call him on his cell phone and at work. His cell phone didn't answer, it was turned off, but I left a voicemail saying that it was important for him to call me as soon as possible. His secretary at work told me that he was away on company business in California and should be back tomorrow. That's all. He went to California and stopped on his way back to surprise me. I think we were both surprised. After calling his family, they said that they had not seen him for several days. I asked them to call me as soon as they could reach him. When I called home, I did not receive an answer, but I left a message there too. I sat in the room and cried. I didn't have a chance to talk to him unless I went home. So I picked up the phone and booked the next flight back to St. Louis. After packing my things, I called Sam on his cell phone and told him what I had learned. He was silent for a minute before speaking. "Anita, I think we're both facing divorce or something worse." "What could be worse than divorce?" The company we work for has a policy that prohibits senior employees from having close relationships. We could both be fired. This will look bad in our documents. Oh, God, I should have known that. But as far as I'm concerned, losing Jack would be much worse. Losing my family would be bad too, but you need to go back to St. Louis and find Jack. Maybe he'll listen to reason. I have already booked tickets for a flight that leaves at noon. I need to be back there by 4:30. For my own sake, I need to find him and talk to him. I'll let you know how it goes. I'll have to stay here until the negotiations are over. I'll be waiting for your call. We said goodbye and turned off the phones. Grabbing my bag and laptop, I hurried to the lobby, checked out of the hotel, and took a limousine to the airport. All the way to St. Louis, I prayed that Jack would talk to me. I had to explain that it was just sex, and it didn't affect him in any way. I had to put everything on the line so that he would be unemotional about my infidelity and accept it for what it was. Nothing but meaningless sex. When I returned home, I didn't notice anything unusual at first. But when I entered our bedroom, I saw that all his clothes and personal belongings were gone. I realized that he had abandoned me. I needed to find him. After many fruitless phone calls, I finally decided to go to his family to see if he was there or if they had an idea where he was. He was visiting his relatives, and his reception made me sick of insensitive cruelty. He told me that he was in the process of filing for divorce and did not want to talk to me, that I could not say anything that could convince him. After he sarcastically told me to write him a long letter explaining my position, I walked away, sat in my car, and cried. The family we planned will never happen. We will never grow old together and enjoy grandchildren together. From a selfish point of view, what made me even more sad was the thought that by the time I found another husband, I would be too old to conceive a child. Finally, I started the car and returned to our empty house. Jack. After a period of insomnia, during which I kept imagining Anita and Sam in bed together, I got up early, walked down the stairs to my parents' house, and put on the coffee. Then I took my laptop and camera and started uploading photos from the camera to the computer. I thought I should see if I could somehow identify Sam in the photographs. Looking at the photos, I couldn't see Sam's face clearly, but then I noticed something on his right hand, which was reaching towards Anita's chest. Having enlarged this place, I saw what I needed. The tattoo, and zooming in further, I could see that it was a heart with the word Marie. Sam's wife's name was Marie. That's all I needed, so I went back upstairs, showered, and got ready for work. When I came down, my mother was already up and preparing breakfast. Later, at work, I burned several CDs with the photos I took and Sam's tattoo. I also printed out a few sets and put them all in a folder. I then went to our HR department and asked to see the manager. After all, Phil and I knew each other, it wasn't that big of a group, and we played golf together. I took a set of photographs out of the folder and laid them out in front of him. "What are these, Jack? Photographs for adults." He grinned. "Sorry, Phil. They may look like that, but they're my wife and Sam Harris, and the date and time on them indicate they were taken Tuesday night and in Sam's hotel room in Denver. They were there negotiating for the company." "Damn it, Jack, I'm so sorry. What can I do?" "You can fire them both for cause under the misconduct clause in their contract with the company. We've never used this before. Are you sure you want this? This will bring the affair to light. I'm guessing this means you're going to divorce Anita over this? I have already instructed my lawyer to prepare the papers, but if you don't do this, I will file a lawsuit against the company." "Okay, Jack. I will forward this to our legal department and take action." Then I went to see my boss, Evan, to tell him what was going on in my life. He was suitably horrified by what I told him about my wife and Sam Harris. When I asked for the rest of the week as vacation, he readily agreed. In parting, he congratulated me on a job well done during my trip to California. A customer called and complimented me on how quickly I solved their problem and got their production line running again. He also asked if I would consider taking over the job in California since the current field engineer was retiring due to health reasons. I told him I would think about it and give an answer when I got back to work next week. As I was leaving Evan's office, I was stopped by his secretary, Kathy. Jack, your wife was here and looking for you. She said she would return later. Katie, I don't want to see my wife under any circumstances. Please let her know when she returns. Oh my God, Jack. I'm really sorry. I didn't know there was a problem. There's a big problem, Kat. We're getting a divorce. She and Sam Harris danced horizontal tango. I knew that by noon, the plant would know about it. Katie loved to spread gossip. I then returned to my desk and called Marie Harris, Sam's wife. I knew her from company picnics and understood that my revelations about our spouses could be very difficult for her. Marie, this is Jack Fillmore. How are you, Jack? I talked to Sam last night and he asked if I had heard from you but didn't say why you might have contacted me. Marie, we need to talk as soon as possible. Okay, Jack, can you come now? I have an appointment with a hairdresser at 1 o'clock today, but I'm free now. Do you still live on Fremont Street? Oh, yes. Okay, I know where you are now. I'll be there in 15 minutes. When I arrived at the Harrises, I was terrified of what I was about to do to this woman and her family. But I knew that Sam should not avoid retribution for this and let Anita make her own decision. Hello, Jack. Come in. Would you like some coffee? I just brewed a fresh one, she asked, inviting me into the living room. That would be wonderful, Marie. Only black, please. She returned a moment later with coffee and sat down in the chair opposite me. So, what will we talk about? I thought about telling her my news gently, but then decided to get it over with as quickly as possible. Marie, I found your husband and my wife making love in Denver, and I am seeking a divorce from Anita, and the dismissal of both of them from their jobs. I hate to tell you this, but it will soon become common knowledge, and I decided to prepare you. I have pictures to prove what I'm telling you if you want to see them. I watched her face to gauge the impact of my words, and was surprised by the lack of any real reaction. Jack, I guess I suspected that he had been playing around on his official trips for years, but I hoped it wasn't true. Sam had always been a loving husband and father, and I didn't want to rock the boat, but I knew that someday something would happen and their affair would become public knowledge. I think this is it. I feel for you and your marriage, and from my own perspective, I'm sorry Sam might get fired. He has been around for many years and may have a hard time finding another job that pays as well. Now I have to decide what to do. Do you want a set of photographs that I have? Yes, leave them, and I will try to find the strength to look at them. I'm really sorry, Marie, but I just couldn't leave it. Anita and I were going to start our family, but I can't live with a person I don't trust and don't respect. The mother of our children must have both. I understand, Jack. Thanks for telling me. I would not like to first learn about this from other sources. And let me tell you again how sorry I am for you and Anita. I'm sure she's just as devastated and remorseful as Sam when she finds out. I know all about his cheating. If it had only been one time, it would have been easier to forgive, but I believe it has been going on for years, and it is hard to accept now that everything's out in the open. I have my pride, and I must be able to control myself. If there's anything I can do, let me know, I told her as I left and headed back to my parents' house. It has been 6 months since I initiated divorce proceedings. This morning, I received a copy of Anita's divorce agreement. I never spoke to her or saw her after she came to my parents' house. My lawyer sorted everything out. I gave her a mortgaged house with expensive furniture and furnishings so that she would release all claims against me. In addition, I took my name off the mortgage. She took full responsibility for the payments. Of course, without a job, she had to put the house on the market and lost her money on the deal. She tried to contest the divorce, but I threatened to change the divorce to adultery and post photos of her and Sam online if she didn't sign the papers within 48 hours. She signed them within the required time, and therefore today, I am a free man. I think she decided that she didn't need me that much. Anyway, she got fired from her job, but she's a smart lawyer and negotiator, so within a month, she found another one. Not making as much money and not having the benefits that seniority brought her at her old job, but I hear she's doing well and meets again. I wish her friend luck if she finds him. I wonder if she told him about our divorce and the reasons for it. Maybe I should enlighten him. Marie divorced Sam and brought him into the open financially. He also found another job after he was fired, but he is having a hard time paying alimony and child support with his new salary. I currently live in Santa Maria, California, a quiet place near the coast, halfway between the Bay Area and Los Angeles. This allows me to work in both the southern and northern parts of the state. I moved here about 4 months ago and rented an apartment in a complex with other singles and young couples, most of whom are trying to save up for a down payment on a house. Housing here is expensive, and to buy it on the market, you need a lot of money. I have a regular friend who lives in the same complex. She's divorced like me, but we're comfortable together, and I think we'll see how things work out in the future. Since I travel so much, I really need to trust whoever I marry, but I need to make a move before much time passes if we want to start a family. The biological clock keeps ticking. Subscribe to our channel so that your second chaff doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think about listening to the next one.